Good evening, welcome to the latest live edition of Last Bowl Boxing. Joined by regulars, well, probably more regular than me at the minute, so I've just took the words out of Harrison's mouth. So, Harrison, good evening.
Good evening, Carl. It's good to have you back on.
Thank you. I know you miss me a lot when I'm not here, Harrison, but it's much appreciated. Sean, good evening.
Evening, guys.
Mr. Ashton, good evening.
Evening, Carl. Great to be on.
Buzzing off the Munich result last night, no doubt.
Very, very good, yeah. Can't complain.
We ain't got time for football, kids boxing, so moving on. Orkan, good evening.
Evening, Carl.
Darren Medcalf, good evening. Daz.
Evening.
And Ander, good evening, Ander. Got there in the end with the camera.
Yeah, we got there in the end. All right, pal.
Not bad. So we're going to cover the main event and the chief support at the Queensberry card in Liverpool, where Harrison's been today to prove he's the only professional amongst us at the press conference, allegedly. And then we're going to cover the Nick Ball fight. And then we're going to talk about a little topic regarding Eddie Hearn and his tweet and social media activity around does he bring main event times early in the evening. So let's start with the Rafferty versus Turner fight, the chief support. Quite a few straps on the line in this fight. Promises to be a bit of a ding-dong. To be fair, two fighters that have probably gone under the radar a little bit on the British scene. But this is a great opportunity to raise a profile. So I'll come to Harrison first. Harrison, give us your thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, for a card where we're going to see a lot of prospects on Saturday night, it's really difficult to get a lot of 50-50s and sort of engage in fights where you can sort of put scorecards to names. But I think this is a really, really good mix-up, to be fair. I think this is good timing for Henry Turner, who hasn't looked, I would say, overly convincing so far in his super lightweight campaign, but he hasn't put a foot wrong either. It's just a second fight outside of London where he's got a good fan base, and he's going to be really tested here, I think, against Jack Rafferty. I think it's probably right that this is for the British title as well, given the state of the super lightweight division domestically. These probably are the best two names to have a good go for it. Jack Rafferty, like you just said off air there, is someone who has made his way from the small hall show, selling the tickets and getting his name out there. He made a really nice name for himself. In some senses, he's the home fighter here, and you could actually get a bit of a feel for that during the build-up for it, where a lot of his team have been the ones making the noise. So this was a really, really good mix-up on Saturday nights. I do think, even though Henry Turner's probably still got his best to show, he should just be a bit too good here. And I hate taking A-sides in a convincing state, but if he's up to his game and what we have seen, he does need to look a little bit better, but he's got the ability there. He's a good puncher, and I think Henry Turner can do a job here on Saturday night.
Okay. Sean, coming to you next. Give us your thoughts and breakdown.
Yeah, I think it's a good fight. I echo what Harrison said there, really. I think with the British title fights, they always have the potential to be the fight of the night, just because of what it means to the fighters. So, yeah, on the whole, I think it's a pick 'em, really. So I can see it going either way, sitting on the fence there. But I think it'll be a good fight.
Oh, you're going to make me do it again, Sean, aren't you? So you've got £1 left in your pocket, Sean. You've got to pick a winner. Who are you going for?
I'll have to put 50p on both, I'm afraid. I just think it's a pick 'em, this one.
I'm going to have to push on it, Sean, because here we've got a bit of time to play with this week. So, I can push on it. So, come on, Sean. Get off that fence and tell us who you think you're going to win. Who's going to win?
I'll go just with Rafferty, I think.
Okay, we got there in the end, didn't we? Coming on to Daz Medcalf, just so we know who I'm talking to. Daz, same question to you. Give us your breakdown on how you think this fight plays out.
Yeah, I've seen both of them. I've seen a lot more Jack Rafferty up close as well. Turner's a good fighter, a lot of potential. I just think the proven guy at the minute is Rafferty, so I just think Rafferty is going to win points, I think.
Too early for Turner then, right?
Well, not too early. If you listen, I don't say that Rafferty is going to win with any degree of 100% confidence. I won't be surprised if Turner does it and announces himself, but going on what I've seen, I just think Rafferty at the minute.
Obviously,
a bit more proven at the minute.
Great shot window for both fighters, right? In a sport where it sometimes can be very difficult to get exposure. So, you know,
Yeah,
there's
of
always
course it is.
on the
Big
line.
chance. Big chance for both. Big chance for both to announce themselves.
Orkan, thanks, Dad. So, Orkan, coming to you with your thoughts and breakdown.
I think it will be a close fight, and so I think that Rafferty wins on a close decision. I haven't watched either of them that much, so my prediction is not the best one, really.
Okay, so you think he goes long? Okay, Mr. Ashton, same question.
It's good to see these guys both getting opportunity on a decent card and their chief support. So it's nice to see. I think it's going to be a very, very close fight. As regards a prediction, I'm going to edge towards what Daz said. I think Rafferty's just a little bit more proven at the minute. He's had a few extra fights. I don't really think. I think the TKO and knockout records are okay, but I don't really think sort of like either of them are like massive punchers. So I'm expecting to be a close points decision for Rafferty, but good fight. I like this one. I think it's decent.
Cheers, Daz. And last but not least, Ander, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, Jack Rafferty's a bit more experienced, had a couple more years as a pro. That might just be the difference in the fight. I think it's very close. Both very good quality and both deserving this shot. I'm going to go Rafferty points. Just a little comment in the sidebar, Cole. Jack Gladman's going Rafferty stops Turner inside 6.
Okay, good evening, Jack. Okay, moving on to the main event of the night. So, Nick Ball versus Ronny Rios.
Oh, hold on. Before you do, Cole, Jack's come back with another comment. Rafferty's a big puncher, having worked a lot with him. So the reason he's picking Rafferty is because he's worked with him.
The reason why he's picking him, because he's probably on a percentage, but allegedly. But moving on. So, Nick Ball versus Ronny Rios, the main event. Obviously, Ronny Rios has got history with fighting for a world title, having tried twice and failed. Although I do think he's an active opponent. So, I'm just going to do it on my screen. Sean, we'll come to you first. Can you just break down the fight and the prediction without having splinters in your arse at the end?
Yeah, I can be a bit more confident with this one, I think. I think Nick Ball wins by a late stoppage. He's obviously coming off the back of the Vargas win on the 5v5. So it'd be interesting to see how he performed in his home city. And let's see where this leads him to next.
Few question marks on this fight, though, Sean, isn't there? Because Nick Ball's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, having a homecoming, as he calling it. And this is last chance saloon for Rios, really. That's how he's painting it, anyway. So I think he's going to handle the pressure.
He seems the type of character that just takes everything in his stride, really. He doesn't seem like he gets too carried away. I mean, I thought he handled himself well when he arguably won his first world title fight, Nick Ball, that is. So I think he'll just take it all in his stride and he'll come through with flying colours, really. And in regards to Rios, it is his last chance, in all honesty. So he's right to treat it like this.
Okay, thank you very much. Darren Ashton, coming to you, same again. Give us your breakdown and your prediction.
Yeah, I think it's an okay fight. I mean, I think we can let Nick Ball off a little bit with as regards his last two fights to having a sort of an easier touch, what we can call this time, for his homecoming. I think Nick Ball will win the fight, but I think it could actually go the distance. I mean, they're both, Rios and Nick Ball have both got a common opponent in Ray Vargas. Obviously, we know the result with Nick Ball and Vargas was a split decision draw, which I thought was the wrong result. And in 2017, Rios lost a unanimous decision to Ray Vargas. So if you put them together, you can come with a result that you expect Nick Ball to win. But I don't think he'll have it all his own way. And but I think he'll win probably a unanimous decision. But I think it'd be interesting to watch. And I like Nick Ball's style. We know what he's like. He comes forward. He's on the offense a lot. So I think it'd be a decent watch.
Okay, thank you very much. Orkan, coming to you, same question. Break the fight down for me. How you think he's going to go and a prediction?
I think Ronny Rios he's a decent fighter. I've watched him a couple of fights, but I think Nick Ball is on a little bit higher level, and I think Nick Ball will win on unanimous decision, points win.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Medcalf. What about the experience levels? Does that come into this, Daz? But bear in mind, Rios has had 17 more pro fights than Ball.
Not really. I think he's on his way out, and he's on the downslide of his career. I think. I think it could go late, could go to points, it could go late stoppage. I don't particularly think Ball's a massive puncher, if I'm honest.
No, I don't.
He's just very busy. I just don't think he's a massive puncher. Could wear him down. I think he's got a decent height advantage, Rios, as well. I think he's got something like 5 or 6 inch height advantage. Whether he uses that or whether he can use that. I can see him having some decent spells, to be honest. Rios, I can see him, having some success. Probably just not going to cope with Ball's relentlessness, to be honest. So I could probably see him stopping Rios around 10, wearing him down.
And coming to you, give us your thoughts.
Well, I don't take the Ray Vargas comparison as something to go by, because he fought Rios 7 years ago. A completely different Ray Vargas then. I've had my doubts about Nick Ball because of his style and the way he lunges in, and but you can't knock him for his aggression, his will. That's what wins him fights. And he's just, as Dad said, relentless pressure. He's getting through fights and beating top quality opponents purely on that. He has boxing ability, but the problem is he's always going to be shorter than everybody else because of his physique. He's 5'2", and everyone else in this division is what, 5'6"? Are they?
6'7", yeah.
5'6", 5'7". When he comes up against the very, very top end, I've said this a couple of times though, to be fair. When he comes up against the very, very top end, he's going to come short because someone's going to catch him. But they've got to be very good to do it because of his style. In this fight, though, I agree with Daz. I think Ronny Rios, he's been a great fighter, but he is coming to the latter end of his career. He's a live opponent, though. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he gets stopped, though. What you might find is Nick Ball, because he's wanting to impress at home, he might come flying out and might cause himself a few problems early on before he settles down. But I say Nick Ball winning points.
Okay, thank you. Harrison, coming to you. Obviously, Rios' last chance, I would suggest a world title. Talked about wanting to be a world title since he was 13 or whatever age it was. So he's going to give it all he's got, but it's whether it's enough, right?
Yeah, and at this stage in his career, it is a case of what's left. I mean, it's 2 world title losses, but we're talking about Ray Vargas 6-7 years ago when he was arguably at his best, and Andy's right there. The comparison's difficult to make with the Nick Ball fight in more recent times, and then to Akhmadliev in more recent times, who's an absolute monster. So, yeah, it's probably just a case that he was in a good division at a bad time, really, unfortunately for him. He's a good fighter. The word live's been used there by 3 of you, and that's exactly what he is. He's someone who has an opportunity to go in there on Saturday night and give it a good go, because he has clearly got ambition left there. Otherwise, he wouldn't be taking the fights. He was absolutely deliberate in saying that he didn't think he was here for the money. He thought he was here because he had a genuine chance of becoming a world champion at the 3rd time of asking. At featherweight, I think that's probably where he needs to be at this stage in his career. He's 34 now, massive reach advantage. But then again, The only thing is, I'd come back to Andy there, where he just said there about Nick Ball. When he gets in there with someone good, he's going to get cleaned out. But you mean, look at his last 2 fights. He's beaten Raymond Ford, and he effectively did beat Ray Vargas and got a bad decision.
Yeah.
So I think he's proven himself enough at this level. Whether he beat Angelo Leo, and obviously he wouldn't beat Inoue, and the fighters around that level, fair enough. But I do think that Nick Ball is set to have way too much here. He's not a talkative character. We're seeing that today, and he's very much business in the ring, and I like that with fighters sometimes. And he is just one of those that is going to leave us talking to his fists, and everything is set up here really nicely for him. We don't see too many fighters get homecomings of this magnitude, and Riyadh season's allowed him for this opportunity, and for so many of the fighters on the undercard from Liverpool who are going to get a chance on Saturday night to showcase themselves on telly. So yeah, it's all set up in Nick Ball's favour. Rios is tough. He's a really, really game fighter. California, but he's got that Mexican style, hasn't he? Where he comes to fight.
Into Harrison. He's going to go.
I think he has to. I think that's the most sensible thing to do. It might be the only way of wearing him out, really. I think Rios will come to fight. I really do. I think it actually could be a bit lively, to be fair, for as long as it lasts. But I can see Nick Ball getting a mid to late stoppage here, because I do think he carries enough power to get an aging Rios out of there. It's very good matchmaking, in my opinion, from Queensbury. It's very well set up for Nick Ball to look good on Saturday.
Carl, a couple of comments in the sidebar before you move on.
Yep.
Jack Gladman really likes Nick Ball. I think he wins it late. He's also put Ball is busy and accurate rather than outright power.
Yep, fair comments, Jack. So we're going to move on to the last topic of the night. Shorter show tonight, guys, but obviously it's a bit of a slow week in the boxing terms. So we're going to move on to Eddie Hearn, who put a post out on all social medias asking fans to give their views on main event start times. So I know we've all had a chat regarding this off camera, but I thought I'd bring it into the show because a lot of mixed opinions, if I'm being brutally honest. So I'm going to come to Dad Medcalf first. What are your views, Dad, on when these start times should start? Because obviously when you're in London and at the O2, trying to get away at that time of the night is an absolute nightmare. But if you start bringing main event shows start times too early, you're going to start competing with things like Premier League football on Saturday nights. And, you might lose some audience. So give us your thoughts.
To be honest, I thought the only issues I had with the Dubois and Joshua was like some of them fighters were fighting in an empty arena, and they didn't deserve to be fighting in front of an near enough empty arena. I've got no issue with bringing them forward earlier, should I say, but we've got to remember that it's the TV that dictates when these fights start. It's not Eddie Hearn.
No.
It's the TV channels. It's obviously for obviously the Joshua Dubois fight would have been broadcast in America as well. So they're taking that into account. I just think it's all down to TV, mate. I don't really think that Hearn and Co have got a massive say in it. I think they'll have some input, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're going to have. I mean, it's been going on for years, mate. Going on for years, like the pay-per-views and the set at a certain time to suit the big broadcasters. So I can't see there being much change, and if there is change, mate, I don't think it's going to be down to Hearn, Warren, even Turkey, mate. I think it's going to be down to the actual broadcasters, the channels. I think they have the final say. What
about cutting the amount of fights on some of these fight cards? Because a lot of them can be stacked, can't they? And maybe they can support all shows then.
I mean, look at the amount of fights on the Joshua Dubois card, and look how long it went on for. I mean, it was just madness. I mean, to be fair, the GBM show the other week, I mean, that start time for the main event would have been late had Ryan Walsh not stopped.
Yeah, it's true.
Reece Mould. Maybe, I mean, there's an old saying, it's been around longer than we have. maybe a bit of quality over quantity sometimes, would come into play. I'd rather see a 5 or 6 fight card, maybe even a 7 fight card with, full of quality rather than a 12 fight card with 3 quality fights on it, rest are just. But it's a fine line, mate, because everyone's got to earn a crust. Every boxer's got to start somewhere, and so I think there's got to be a fine balance found with it. But particularly, like I said, but for shows that are smaller, mate, I don't really care if they've got 12, 13 on, because it's just how it is. It's how it's always been. Your TV, it's dictated by TV. They're giving the deals out. I mean, it was saying, it's been like it most of the time when these pay-per-views. Like I said, I believe Warren and maybe Shalom and Turkey will have a say. They'll have a bit of a say, but I can just see this coming down to broadcasters. Can't see it any other. If they decide it's right for them, it'll happen. If they decide it's not right for them, it won't.
Yeah. Okay, cheers, Daz. Coming on to you, Orkan. Orkan, give us your thoughts regarding, because obviously you do a lot of travelling from overseas to the UK. You come to a lot of fight nights. What are your view on the UK main event start times?
My view is different to shows I'm going to, or when I'm at home and watching the show, completely different. So when I go to show, I want to have it late. The Ryan Dixon, Terry Harper was too early start time for a main event, and it was so empty in the arena on the undercard. The undercard started. I was there for the first fight, and the undercard started 4:30, and it was empty in the arena for a few hours. So if they will have start time 9 p.m., it will be more empty for the undercard fights. So a lot of fans arrived at 7 for the show in Sheffield, and the GBM that show that would have been finished way after midnight if the last 2 fights had gone 2 points.
Okay.
So for me, ideal. For me, 10 p.m. is a good main event start.
Okay. Cheers. Coming on to you, Daz Ashton. Obviously, a lot of facets to this question, isn't there? You've got customer experience, you've got broadcaster, overlapping products, etc. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you like my personal opinion of what I'd like first. I sort of like agree with Orkan as regards. I think a 10 p.m. main event start time is fine. Like as regards me personally, I mean, I also agree with what he's saying about the undercard fights and the undercard fighters. Eddie Hearn said on the one, I saw someone pop the question to him, what would you be like sort of pushing for an earlier start time? He said, yeah, a 6 p.m. start time as regards the main card start time. For me, the problem is with that though, whereas us on here, we're also football fans as well. Like you have a 5:30 game on a Saturday, and even if your team isn't playing, like obviously I'm a Villa fan, even if my team isn't playing, if Manchester United are playing Tottenham, I still want to watch that 5:30 kickoff. Whereas
up the Spurs.
Oh my days!
You would be a Tottenham fan.
Yeah,
you would be.
Someone's got to be. So you've got like the 5:30 kickoff, and if I'm at home, I don't want to be sitting there with my remote flicking through the channels to see the boxing, a round of the boxing, and watching the corner at Old Trafford. Like I just think it's a nice balance to have the Premier League game sort of like finishing and a main card starting. And whereas Daz said it's going to come down to the broadcaster is also going to want their viewing figures to be as high as possible. Are they going to want boxing to mix with other sports like live football? Surely they're going to want their main show to be like mainly where like it's being watched, rather than people flicking over between shows and taking more of an interest in that. So it's a difference of opinions. For me personally, I'm happy with a 10. I'd even be happy with 10:30. I don't mind if I'm at home, if I'm at a show. Transport's another thing you've got to look at. I mean, when I went to Joshua Dubai the other week, okay, it was London for me, and I had to come back on a coach. I got back home at like gone 3 a.m. But we sort of know what we're letting ourselves in for. But where Daz said it was a bit ridiculous between the chief support and the main event. I know Liam Gallagher had to come on, but it just went on and on and on, waiting for Liam Gallagher, and then that gap was too big for me, where there was no fight, and you're sitting in the stadium thinking a little bit, is it gonna, surely it can happen now, but obviously they're to a schedule.
He has mentioned that as well, Daz. Ern's mentioned that as well, a bit more of a quicker turnaround in between fights, which may shrink the fight card as well.
Yeah, I do agree with that. It's just, for me, the biggest concern is going to be, I don't want to see undercard fights neglected in the arena and on TV. I think you've got to have the balance where, like I say, we're all football fans as well. You don't want other live sort of sports interacting at the same time with the boxing. I think it's going to be.
There's only one winner, isn't there? If Sky Sports are choosing between a Premier League fight and an undercard at a fight night, there's only one winner, right? So
it happens that when they take the turnarounds between fights happens. This is small shows, mate, are the most frustrating. You know what I mean? Listen, other week, last week, a show had about 7 fights on it, and mate, in between fights, it looked like some bird out at crowd who had a few too many Stellas were going ring singing Delilah every time. You know what I mean? It's like, it just borders on silly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that happens at lower level. I think listen, every promoter wants a packed house for their event. I think trouble you have with these big shows is you get a lot of celebrities who like to turn up fashionably late. A lot of people that have just turned up for the Joshua Dubois fight. They wouldn't have turned up for any of the other fights.
Did notice that, Did notice that.
So, listen, you can argue that, I've heard some people say, oh, yeah, they're not real boxing fans. And, well, it's hard to say that someone's not a boxing fan just because they're turning up for that one fight. But being celebrities, they've got that, they've got that privilege to do that. I'd like to see, I remember cards. I mean, I remember the Calzaghe Eubank, Naz was on it. I mean, that was literally quite full from start almost. I'd love to go back to that, but I think times have changed. Boxing's changed. It's the landscape of it's changed, but I do stick by. I think that the broadcasters have got the final say. I mean, Jack's made a comment inside. He says Hearn has a big say. I don't think Hearn has a big say at all. I think Hearn can voice his opinion, but ultimately, like Daz says, and I'm sure other people will say, the zone do not want to clash with a Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Man United match. Do you know what I mean?
Or even a big European League game. They've got broadcasting rights for European football as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just, I do agree that they will have a say, but I'm not buying for 1 minute that they've got a massive influence because, the broadcasters are bigger than all the promoters. They decide what times and when it's happening.
Anything you want to add, Mr. Ashton, before I move on?
No, I'm all good. I'm interested to see what the other guys think.
Okay, coming to Andy next then. So, Andy, give us your thoughts and breakdown.
I don't like fight cards starting too early. The Wembley show was just ridiculous, mate. Like Daz said earlier on, you got fighters that have dreamt about fighting on such a big stage, and they walk out to an empty arena. It might have had 10,000 in it, but it was empty, and it's sad to see, really. And it don't look great for the viewing audience that are viewing from TV neither. Looking at it from a fan going into the arena perspective, I mean, we had running commentary from Darren Ashton getting to the venue, you know, asking us what was going on in the fights because he got stuck in traffic and he was wanting to see specific. I can't remember what fight it was. Was it a Kelly fight you were wanting to see?
It was Josh Padley.
Josh Padley.
I missed that one, and then I got in for Josh Kelly. Yeah.
And he's, you know, and he's gutted because he's missing a really good undercard fight because they've got it on way too early. Now I get it; they did that because of how stacked the card was, but they're still putting fights on from 5 o'clock, 5:30 on YouTube shows. So I just don't see the point of that, mate. You know, fighters are getting the big break on a massive show. A lot of these fighters on the undercard are coming off small all, and they're getting a break and they're getting the chance on the big show. No one's there to watch it.
Yeah,
it's not on the live show. It's only hardcore boxing fans that watch the YouTube stuff. And then you think about the crowds that are coming in. Half of them don't rock up till gone 8 o'clock because they're out on, you know, they've gone as a party. They might be, I don't know, eight or 10 lads.
Wembley was empty, wasn't it? It was empty.
You want to go for a few bevies first, Carl.
Yeah,
they're not going to rock up to the venue till 8 o'clock, probably. I'm not saying the show should start at 8 o'clock. I think 7 o'clock's the right time. I don't understand why he wants to mess with it.
Even the Warrington fight, Andy, it looked empty, didn't it? During the Warrington fight, which was a crying shame, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
I just, it's one of them, mate, that you're never going to please everybody, and I don't think why change it. I don't.
Well, sorry, just quick, Andy. You say about the variation with different with fans. I got off the coach and I'm literally like about to run to Wembley to get in for the Josh Kelly fight. And this woman gets off the coach with her partner and she goes, "Where are you running off to?" I said, "The stadium, because I'm going to the fight." She goes, "Oh, I'm going to meet my mates in the pub first. I'm having 2 or 3 hours in there." And I was like, "Okay." But like that's the difference in fans and how they want to go, like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I don't really see why he's tinkering with it. I don't think you're going to get any different viewership. If anything, it'll be negative because of what you've all said about the football. Why mess with it? As a boxing fan, I want my quality for the money that I'm forking out. Especially if I'm sat in that arena, I want the fights to go on till as late as they can go on till. You know, a lot of these venues have a midnight curfew. That's why you normally get an headliner fight that you know they'll come out, ring walk will be 10:30, they'll be in the ring for 11 o'clock, and then they're done for before 12.
The interesting thing was though, I don't know if any of you saw it. Did you see the poll results that Eddie Hearn showed? What he done on social media on Twitter? I think it was something like 75% voted they prefer it to be 9 p.m. main event rather than 10. Something like, I think that's something like 70 or 75% in favour of 9 p.m.
He got 55,000 votes. He was reporting, wasn't it? 55,000 votes put the teeth in.
Okay.
So it's a considerable number.
Yep, definitely.
And he's talking about talking about how he experienced the UFC in Vegas, where he went to restaurants after the main event, and he quite enjoyed the fact that it wasn't too late in the evening. But I'm not sure he's speaking for the boxing fans here, to be honest.
I mean, to be fair, if that main event had been on at 10 o'clock, 10:30, finish all done and dusted for 11:30, you can still go to any restaurant in London, to be fair.
Especially in Vegas,
and in Vegas, yeah. So listen, Eddie's probably just talking from his own viewpoint, which, you know, he's entitled to.
That's not helpful, though, is it? When you get a poll where 75% are coming on his side, it's not helpful at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the GBM show in Sheffield, there were loads of fans who went before the main event, to get to Rotherham from Sheffield, you had to go with public transport before the main event was
a lot of
finished.
isn't there? I do think there's a sweet spot in terms of timing somewhere. There's a sweet spot, but it does depend on infrastructure around the stadium as well.
To me, that issue was because Izzy should have put Reece Mould on last. Reece Mould.
Yeah, but were a few friends that went before to catch buses to Rotherham before the main.
They all left. Majority of them left because Reece Mould. When Reece Mould had lost and his fight was over, they didn't want to stay because the majority of that was Reece Mould selling tickets. Reece Mould sells a skip full of tickets.
Yeah, he does.
And after that, obviously they all went. That's why you heard the ring announcer say, "We have still got our main event coming up. Stick around," sort of thing. Basically, Reece Mould should have been on last.
Yeah.
I'll bring Harrison in. So, Harrison, same question to you. Give us your thoughts regarding start times.
Yeah, I'm going to offer a slightly more advocated opinion here for earlier start times, but it's not really for the reason that has been offered there. I don't think it is very black and white within fans, and you've seen that, like you just said there with the Eddie Hearn poll, where there was more people in favour of it than lesser. It depends who you ask. Fighters, some trainers will want to get out there earlier because it just gets everything out of the way. But then, of course, there's the argument that fans want to stay longer, have more drinks, enjoy their evening a bit more. They've paid good money, so they want to stay in the arena until 11, 12, 1 a.m. So it really does depend on who you ask. It's a very split opinion thing. What I need to see more of, though, and it's the dreaded 3 letters on a boxing podcast, but the UFC. The way that the UFC, and this changed probably about 4 years ago when they took advertisements out of their pay-per-views, the UFC went to a completely strict schedule where they would open a pay-per-view broadcast at a certain time, and they would literally go fight to fight to fight to fight with no interval, no interim, no 50-minute interviews of fighters in between everything, and the shows run incredibly well. And that has seen the figures of UFC go up dramatically just because of how well the shows are broadcast. Why can't, and this is more DAZN than Sky and TNT, because I understand there has to be ads. Why DAZN can't then present themselves in that fast-paced fashion, keep fans engaged throughout an entire show, and let the show run smoother? That will allow for quicker start times, but also then you're not having the interference between fights. The biggest problem is there's too much jitter in between fights. Dad's got it spot on there with small halls. I've been to small halls before where I've been sat for 25 minutes, and the level of entertainment that you're sat doing, it's not the same as a high-level show. It's usually just some DJ in the back, some 60-year-old bloke playing Sweet Caroline every 5 minutes. Like, it's just not enjoyable to sit through. So I think there is an argument for faster-paced shows, but the quality can remain the same. That Wembley show didn't need to be as long as it was, fair enough. I get Wembley has a 10:30 cut-off, which is very strict compared to most arenas, but it didn't need to start at 4 p.m, did it? It wasn't fair on Josh Padley to have his big moment where there was about 9 people to see it, and then for Josh Kelly to get back on the big stage and 20 people to see it. It just doesn't make sense to me, really, that. If you're going to try and promote the sport.
Sorry, just before you carry on, mate, I don't want to jump in, but comment from Jack Glavin in the sidebar. He said the board reps require intervals.
They don't have to be as long as they are, though.
I'm astounded by that. I'm astounded by it because, it's not. Yeah, I just don't understand why they would require.
I mean, me and Cole. Before you get back onto it, Harrison, me and Cole have been to many local small hall shows where the cards are stacked. There's 10 to 12 fights. And there's no intervals. There's no breaks between fighters. As soon as the first fight's done, the next fighters are hanging around backstage waiting to come out straight away. Yeah. And the turnover's that quick.
I'll tell you now, 99.9% of British Boxing Board of Control whips, you're in and out the ring. Yeah. So they can go home early. They can go home. you've got, you have a little break in between because you've got interviews, you've got people, they come out of the ring, you get a little check over the decisions announced. So you've got a little break. Do you know what I mean? I've some timings for in between fights in shows, in small shows as well, is absolutely ridiculous. And when you've got a fighter warmed up and then they come back and say, "Oh, another 15 minutes, we're doing a raffle," I mean, that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Do you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.
Look, I think the point there is really good about small hall, but obviously Eddie Hearn has got no interest in this. His promotion and his idea is going to be for a high audience on DAZN, starting these times earlier. I don't know how much. The thing is, to me, it seems like he's trying to please the few rather than the thousands, in my opinion. Like, he's got this focus on getting the fighters out there earlier so they can get back to their hotels. The judges, some people in the crowds would prefer it earlier, but the problem is the massive fans come from your broadcast audience. And if the DAZN turn around and tell Eddie Hearn, no, we want to wait till 10 o'clock so the footy's out the way and people are back from the pub, then we do start at 9 p.m. DAZN say as DAZN say. No one is going to get in their way. Daz was spot on earlier. Eddie Hearn can say as much as he wants, but ultimately it's what the broadcaster decides. And it's different for every broadcaster. It's like with Sky, they're never going to have 9 p.m. main events, are they? Because if it interferes in any way with any level of football,
correct,
boxing is second, third base. TNT this on Saturday night, I've got Nick Ball on 2 because they've got Inter Milan playing on 1.
Yeah,
An Italian football match will draw a bigger crowd for the undercard portion of the boxing than the boxing will over the football.
And they see it as a natural progression, don't they? They use the football as a vehicle to lead viewers into the fight night, right? So they're not going to want to. They're not going to want to mess around with that.
Yeah, and that's going to work for some broadcasters, specifically Sky and TNT. Now, DAZN's position in football at the minute isn't that strong. I know they have the National League games on a Saturday now, but that's not pulling in the high audiences. If there was the case where they got the Premier League in the next 5 to 10 years, you will see those main events get pushed further out from 9 p.m. towards 10 and 11 o'clock. But whilst they're in a position where they have to rely on what other broadcasters are doing, I see it as very unlikely that DAZN will take the plunge to go 9 p.m. I think it works on some shows. Next Gens, I think it would be really good. But with main events where you've got a story to build, hype, tension, drama, everything in the arena, don't fix what's not broken.
Harrison, don't you think that there's only got a great opportunity here to have a USP, which would be that they're going to rattle fights through without big intervals in the middle?
Well, that's what I mean about the UFC, how well ESPN have done with that since it moved to them. Their audience figures are so much higher than what Fox used to have. So you're right. DAZN should use this as a selling point. They should turn around and say, well, Frank Warren's shows normally go on till 11, 12 o'clock. They just do. It's the way the shows. I've been in your call. I've slept in your call sometimes because of some of his shows going on till 6 in the morning. It's ridiculous. So you've got that one side of the scale compared to Eddie Hearn's 9 p.m. philosophy. And they're really, how can the two biggest promoters in the country be that far apart on the same thing? It just doesn't make sense to me. I just think that they all need to come together and agree a fair time. I think 10 p.m.'s fine. I've never seen a problem with a 10 p.m. main event. Sometimes it drags on a little bit, but I'd far rather it dragged past 10 p.m. than we started to recline it back into 9 personally. But again, it depends who you ask.
Guys,
the only bit where I find it unacceptable, Harrison, is when the delaying the start of a main event past 10 o'clock and they're rolling out this footage that we've all been watching all week, these interviews that we've all been watching all week, and it drags on to 11 o'clock when it could have been kicked off at 10 and forget about showing us an interview that we'd seen on YouTube on Monday afternoon.
Guys,
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder, lads, and I'll use the Wembley show as an example. I sometimes wonder whether when you get into the last 2 fights of the show, if they've not got their timings right and fights have finished too quickly, they've told main event fighters to be in the arena at a certain time. They've told them what time they need to be warmed up for. They've told them what time the ring walk's going to be. They can't then change that because the fight is not going to be ready. So it's about structuring a little bit better and planning for early finishes in certain fights. You're going to get little patches like that. If you have 3 fights in a row where fights aren't going more than 2 or 3 rounds and they're like scheduled as 8 or 6 rounders, you're losing a lot of time there.
maybe have floating bats like they used to back in the day. Fighters who, you know, were used for floating fights.
Yeah. That seems to have gone away, and that used to happen all the time.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It's good.
Yeah. Harrison, anything else for you, Harrison, before we move on, fella?
Well, just touching on that last comment, I'm actually quite against the floating fights. I used to hate them. I used to have a real problem with the idea of sticking someone on a card who wasn't guaranteed to even fight, or if they were, they're going to fight after a main event in front of like 10 people. The worst thing for me was whenever you had like a good co-main, and then you're all excited for the main event, and then someone's in some 4-rounder against a journeyman. I'm quite glad that seems to have gone away personally. But again, that's each of their own. Some people prefer it. For me, I think it slows the show down too much. I think that we should just be feeding straight from co-mains into mains. Don't bring it.
You can't do it, Harrison. You can't do it, mate. If a fighter's in the back, and the show's running fast, and the fighter hasn't got his hands wrapped, you can't turn around to him and say you've got 5 minutes to get your hands wrapped and get ready and get out there. It don't work like that.
But the thing is, a lot of float. Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of floater fighters know within reason when they're going to be on because of the way the schedule is. They're not sat there with 5 minutes to wrap their hands. They could be sat there for an hour, 2 hours with their hands wrapped. Daz will probably know this better than anyone.
Yeah, floaters, yeah, but I'm talking about the main event guys.
But they know.
What I'm saying is, if you fight going early, you haven't got any floaters, you're saying you don't like them, right? They haven't been using them. So if the fights are going quick, they've got a big gap between either the co-main and the one before, or the co-main and the main event. And that gap's got to stay that gap because the main event fighters aren't ready.
Yeah, but it's up to the main event fighters to get to arenas earlier and be prepared for anything.
No, it's not.
Of course it is.
No, it isn't because they're given a schedule, Harrison.
Well, but the majority of the time, right?
As a fighter, does will probably back me up, or maybe not. With a fighter that's in headlining on a massive main event like these big shows, it's all about being primed and ready at a specific time. They've been working on it all week.
Yeah, right. I agree with you on that. But also, it don't matter who you are, what status you are, world champion, area champion, whatever. You go out when it suits that TV channel.
You've got to be ready.
It suits that. Honestly, mate, I've seen it with my own eyes.
And also, we're talking about 36 minutes maximum, right, in terms of time duration. That's if someone gets spiked in the first round.
I'm not saying it's right. But I've seen it. I've been involved in title fights, or you'll be out at 9:30. So you get there in good time. You get your hands wrapped in good time, and then you sat waiting.
Yeah.
Because there's like delays. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can chuck up. I mean, when you get all these blowouts and everything, maybe match fights a bit better.
Yeah.
You know, don't have so many walkovers, easy fights. So listen, that's another topic for another show, I guess. But it don't matter who you are, what standing you are. And I'm not saying it's right, Andy. I'm not saying it's right.
The way you've put that, I agree with you that if a show's running long, it's tough shit. If a main event fighter's told you need to be your hands need to be wrapped for 10 o'clock and your ring walks at 1:30. If that show's running long for whatever reason, if something's happened, if there's been an accident or something's happened or whatever, and it comes to 11 o'clock or 11:30, unfortunately, that's the way it is. But when it's the opposite way and you've got a massive gap because the show's gone really quick, you've got a big gap, you can't expect in a main event fighter that's been told to turn up at the arena at 10 o'clock because the ring walks at 11, that gives them an hour to prep and be ready, warm up, all that.
Well, any main event fighter that's due to fight at 11 and turns up at 10, that's just...
No, it wouldn't happen.
Anyway.
I'm just...
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, but I'm just saying...
I'm using an example, right? That's just an example. They may turn up at 9, and then that gives them 2 hours prep, whatever.
Still too late.
My point is, if that show's running really, really quick, and they rock up the arena at the time they're told to rock up at 9 o'clock or whatever, and that's their prep time, that's how they've always done it, and then someone walks up to them at 9:05 and says, we're running really quick. You're on in half an hour. That ain't going to work, mate. That's never going to work. That's why there was a massive gap between what happened and the Joshua fight.
Yeah,
because Joshua wasn't prepared. He wasn't ready.
That's that's never. I mean, that shouldn't really ever happen. I mean, you get people. You know, I mean, listen, you'll have seen it yourselves. You'll get the analysts talking a lot, discussing things, and pass a bit of time. Listen, I'm just from the viewpoint of if my fighter's in a world title fight and they said, "Oh, you'll be on at 10:30," and you turn up at 9, and then that's not enough. Should be there for 8 o'clock for me.
So it's on your head then, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And it's not on the broadcaster.
Okay, all right, okay. Let's use that as a scenario then, Daz.
On the team.
Let's use that as a scenario. You turn up at 8 o'clock.
Mm.
You know you're not fighting till 10:30. When do you start
warming
your fighter up and getting their hands wrapped?
If what, mate?
When would you start warming your fighter up and getting their hands wrapped?
If we're on at 11, let's say we're on at 11 and we turn up at 8, we're talking a world title fight.
Yeah.
Right. So we turn up at 8, been told we're fighting at 11. Basically, when we get there, I would recheck the schedule. I would say, are we still on time? They can give us a bit of an insight, and I'm not being funny as well. But me personally, I'll look at what fights are before we're on, and I'll give my opinion. I'll give my opinion to myself on them fights.
Yeah,
I'll think, well, I don't think that fight's going to last long, and I don't think that's going to last long either. Yeah, so then I'll say to my fighter, listen, I don't think this is going to last long, and that's going to last long. So I think we're going to be ready to go a bit earlier. So we're going to get you wrapped up, ready, and then we can, once they're wrapped up, right, and they're comfortable with the wraps, we can walk. It takes 10-15 minutes to warm a fighter up properly, if that, and that's a slow warm up, slow and steady. So you're not leaving anything. So to me, then you can gauge from the whip and say, listen, what we're doing, what we're saying, and all that sort of stuff.
You have got flexibility, haven't you, Dad? Once them hands are wrapped, you've got a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, listen. Once them hands are wrapped, right, and they're comfortable with the wraps, then it buys you a lot of time. I mean, you get fight. Listen, I've been in dressing rooms when fighters say, "I don't want my hands wrapped yet. No. Why? Are they too heavy to carry around? Do you know what I mean? It's just nonsense. It's like, once the hands are wrapped, you've got a bit of play time. You know what I mean? Like I said, a lot of trainers, mate, just turn up and wrap hands, and that's that. You've got to look in a world title fight. You've got to look, at the fights before you and use your own judgment.
So what you're saying is there could be some movement in start times, then.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't see anything. Listen, I wouldn't mind seeing 10 o'clock main event. I'd be all right with that. Your early main events. Listen, I'll say it from a trainer's point of view. If they decide that your main event's going to be 9 o'clock, then we as a trainer just have to adjust to that.
Yeah.
Tough. Simple as.
The key's in the word professional, right? You do whatever you need to do to get that fight prepared.
Yeah, exactly. Of course you do. It's, I mean, I've not seen much of it when people. Well, listen, when Nick fought Gemma Rueck, tried to rush us out, and she's got another like 10 minutes to warm up. And I says, it's not ready yet. Oh, well, we're ready to go. Well, we're not.
Yeah.
You're waiting. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to think that in world title fights are a little bit more organised, should I say? That's the right word. But, listen, you've just got to adapt to whatever, they do. It's...
Yeah.
There's also an argument that we've all said it. The broadcaster has the final say. If the broadcaster wants that ring walk for that main event fight to be at a specific time, that's how they've scheduled their broadcasts. So say they want that main event ring walk to be 10:30 10 start and you know, first bell 11 o'clock or whatever. And the fights go early. They want to stick to that schedule, which is why on some of these really big cards like the Wembley show, it happened with Tyson Fury's Wembley card as well, if you remember. Everyone was waiting ages for Tyson Fury to come out. Same sort of scenario. And it just come to me then that I just wonder whether the broadcasters basically like, well, no, we're not running the show quick. We're not getting the fighters out any earlier. This is the time we want the main event to come out, and this is going to stay at that.
I think that's definitely a part to play. If you've got an American audience interested in the fight night, that definitely comes into play. Definitely.
Yeah, we see when Naz were fighting, they used to have a bit later start times for an American audience. Yeah. And I don't think he liked that, but he had no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually used to tailor his sparring and running to late at night. Yeah. So we were used to that physical activity at that time when he was doing ring. But I do think though, mate, that if let's use AJ as an example, if Anthony Joshua told you fighting, you ring walking at 10:30. If they turned up at 9 o'clock, I just think that's poor preparation.
They never would they?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
No. Sean, I'm going to bring you in to close the show off. So give us your thoughts, Sean.
Yeah, I agree with what you've all said pretty much. I'm in the same camp. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So I saw Eddie Hearn's interview when he first mentioned it on the weekend, and it very much seemed to me that it's just his own personal perspective on this. It's not really what he doesn't really care what the fans think, should I say. He used the example of 10 or 11 p.m. main events, that he doesn't leave the arena till 2-3 in the morning. So it seems like it's, well, probably selfish isn't the right way to frame it, but it just seems that it's convenient for him to have an early main event rather than the fans. But I'm very much in the camp, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The only thing I would say is them going on too late. I think it was Joe Joyce and Zhang in the first fight, or it may have been Joyce and Dubois. But I don't think they ring walked until gone midnight. So I think, they can't be that late per se. But yeah, 10:30 is the perfect time in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. Andy, do you want to pick Jack's comments up in the side and then see that?
Yeah, Jack's put, I don't know what this comment relates to, what part of the conversation, but Jack's put, can also be in a contract at that level. I think he's talking about start times. I'll be surprised if a fighter's got in his contract that he has to be, he's not going out until a certain time. That might, I don't know. Anyway, his last comment is Ricky Hatton boxed at 2 a.m. in Manchester to suit US audiences. Yeah, I remember that. Happened more than once. Well, lads, it's been a great show. Lots of debate. I like it when we have little topics like this because it stirs a bit of emotion up, and that's what boxing is all about for me. So, thank you all for joining. We do this every single Thursday at 7 o'clock. We're also now got a second show, normally on a Sunday at 6 p.m. Join us, like, comment, subscribe. You'll get the notifications of when we got content landing on the channel. Much appreciated for everybody's support. Jack Gladman, thank you for the comments in the sidebar. This has been Last Bell Boxing. Thanks for joining, lads.
Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, guys.